The Helmand sun burned white, bleaching the land and driving dust into every seam of fabric and gear. Inside the compound, laughter spilled from the chow hall careless, sharp bouncing off concrete walls. Marines filled their stomachs and lungs, preparing for another routine patrol. At the far edge of the training yard, away from the noise and bravado, one figure sat alone, cross-legged on a tarp, a rifle laid carefully across her lap. Sergeant Elena Marquez, 27 United States Marine Corps sniper. Worked with mechanical precision. Every movement was deliberate. No wasted motion. No hurry. She was smaller than most of the men around her, barely over 5 feet. Narrow shoulders beneath a desert tan blouse. Where others projected swagger, she projected control. She drew a cloth through the bore, inspected the bolt face, then scribbled a note in a small spiral notebook, balanced against her knee. Her rifle, an M40A5, wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of thought. Scope clicks, humidity changes, muzzle wear, she tracked it all. She knew exactly how the rifle would behave on any given day. 2 lance corporals passed by, smirks heavy with meaning. "There's the quota sniper," one muttered. "Paper shooter," the other laughed. "Good thing cardboard doesn't shoot back." It didn't slow. They didn't expect a response. They didn't get one. Elena kept polishing the bolt and added another line to her notebook. She'd heard every version of it before. Did wait, mascot box checker. Too small. Too quiet. Too different. Even senior sergeants with multiple deployments dismissed her without hesitation. Great range scores. One had told the company commander. But combat. Put her on comes. Keep her useful. So that's what they did. Support detail became her permanent roll-hauling gear, monitoring radios, tracking logistics. She wasn't assigned Overwatch. She wasn't placed on ridgelines. She was politely told to stay in her lane. What no one noticed, because no one bothered to look, was what Elena built in the quiet hours, while others joked in the smoke pit. She unfolded maps beneath red lens light and memorized terrain until it lived behind her eyes. She logged wind patterns by valley and hour. She dry-fired until her breathing matched a metronome. And inside her unremarkable green notebook, she recorded everything: ballistic tables, environmental offsets, handwritten calculations in case technology failed. Each page was precise, dense with numbers. Arrows traced across grids. It was her doctrine and seen by those convinced. She had none. Hidden beneath her sleeve was a small tattoo, the Marine sniper emblem. She had earned it through perfection under pressure, through a school that punished hesitation and demanded mastery. But in Helmand, she kept it covered. She had no interest in reminding men who'd already decided she didn't belong. That was Elena Marquez's paradox. She didn't argue. She didn't flare. She carried insult the same way she carried her rifle: quietly, patiently. She wasn't waiting for permission. She was waiting for decality. Her story didn't start in Helmand. It began in South Texas, where dust hung in the air and the land stretched flat beneath an endless sky. Her father, Marine, forced home by injury, raised her with Corps discipline, even miles from a base. Chores before sunrise. Fence repairs before breakfast. At dusk, he lined soda cans on fence posts and handed her a battered rifle. "Steady breath," he'd say. "Slow trigger. Let the shot surprise you." By 12, she never missed at 50 yards. By 16, she outshot grown men who came to hunt the land. Her father rarely spoke praise, but pride lived quietly in his eyes. When he died unexpectedly during her senior year, Elena joined the Marines to honor him, to test whether his discipline truly lived in her bones. It did. She earned a sniper slot, something few women achieved, and even fewer were respected for. But in Helmand, paper achievements meant little against entrenched opinion, so she endured. Rifle to range, notebook to bunk, knowledge growing while swagger echoed. The compound ran on routine patrols out, reports in chow lines, briefings. Elena existed at the margins. Then came the orders. 480 Marines, reinforced by attachments, were to enter a valley assessed as lightly held. A routine sweep. Secure, Clear, stabilize. The maps told a different story. Elena saw narrow approaches. High ground on 3 sides. Kill zones waiting to ignite. She raised her hand once. "Sir," she said evenly, pointing to the projection. "These folds could conceal a significant enemy force. It's too clean." "This looks like a trap." The colonel barely looked at her. "Track equipment, Sergeant." "Strategies above your pay grade," laughter rippled. Elena closed her notebook. The Marines rolled out confident doctrine intact, danger abstract. Elena stayed behind on support detail, watching dust swallow. Their silhouettes, she had mapped that valley long before the order came. She knew how it would close. And now, with thousands moving into its jaws, she was left behind. The radios stayed calm until they did, missed check-ins. Overlapping voices, a word that bends a man's voice forever. Contact, static, another net lit up. East Ridge. Drone feeds bloomed with muzzle flashes. Smoke surged from the draw. Convoy icons froze. Hold position, command repeated. Follow protocol. No air support within 200 meters. Rules were clear. Men who once joked now stared at screens. Busy with nothing, Elena studied angles, counted bursts. Read wind and smoke. "Nobody's asking for air," she said finally. "A rifle will do." The colonel didn't turn fully. "It's not authorization," she continued. "It's geometry. Give me a position and time. I'll cut their anchors without touching ours." Laughter tried to survive and failed. Asterisk, stay in your lane. On the feed, a machine gun walked rounds down a gully. An RPG team shifted for a clear shot. Elena unzipped her rifle case. Steel and glass came free. "I can end this," she whispered. For them and for herself. The first sergeant looked up. "Where are you going with that?" "Out," she said. And before anyone could stop her, another call sign broke, mid-sentence. Pinned. Casualties mounting. Silence followed. And then Elena Marquez stepped forward. "The 200-meter rule stands," the colonel repeated. As if the words themselves could generate cover. No one moved. The men who had laughed stared at their hands. The ones who had whispered found nothing left to say. Officers shuffled procedures that no longer mattered. The monitors continued to display a truth that didn't care whether anyone was ready to accept it. Elena slung the rifle. Her eyes moved from the screens to the door and back again. The angles outside were unforgiving but not impossible. The distances were severe but still within the rifle's reach. In her mind, she traced a shallow saddle on the near ridge, a firing lane slicing through the enemy's anchors. 2 shots to collapse the geometry, a third to keep it broken. No one asked for her plan. No. One asked anything at all. The room had chosen waiting over deciding. She had waited. She had stayed silent. She had written doctrine into notebooks no one bothered to read. And now the valley was asking the oldest. Question of warfare, and she knew the answer. She drew a single breath and spoke again. Softer this time, steadier. "I can end this." They ignored her. Elena didn't wait for permission. She walked out of the command center with her, rifle slung across her chest. Helmet clipped low, jaw set like iron. No one followed. No one stopped her. The men who had mocked her stayed seated, eyes fixed on the feed, content to let rules finish. Writing an obituary for 4,080 Marines, she moved through the compound like a shadow, passing dust-caked Humvees and fuel-stained crates. Her boots struck the earth in a rhythm, calmer than her heartbeat. Inside her vest pocket, her father's old dog tag tapped softly against her chest, metal worn thin by his service, then hers. The letters faded but never erased. At the compound's edge, she checked her load. Suppressed M4A5 across her shoulder. Extra magazines snug in their pouches. Rangefinder clipped tight. Notebook pages sealed in plastic and tucked near her heart. She carried nothing for glory. Nothing for protocol. Only what geometry and survival required. The climb to the Overwatch. Ridge was brutal. Loose shales slid beneath her boots, the slope resisting every step. She stayed low, moving with the patience of someone who had rehearsed this approach 1,000 times in her head. Dust coated her face. Rocks scraped her sleeves. Still, she climbed. At the ridge's crown, curved just enough to hide her silhouette, she went prone. Set the bipod and let the world collapse into her scope. Below her, the valley was chaos given form. Marines crouched behind burning vehicles, pinned under overlapping sheets of fire. Muzzle flashes stitched the ridgelines. RPG teams shifted, hunting angles. Dust erupted, where rounds chewed into earth. The battalion was being consumed slowly. Methodically, Elena pressed her cheek to the stock. Her crosshairs settled on a machine gun nest, 900 meters out, dug into a rocky spur. The weapon barked in steady rhythm. Holding an entire squad flat against the dirt, she exhaled. The reticle froze. She pressed the trigger. The suppressed crack slid into the valley like a whisper. A heartbeat later, the gunner collapsed. The weapon stuttered, then went silent. For a moment, everything paused. Marines lifted their heads in confusion. Then, radios exploded. "Who's shooting? Command, do we have air?" "Negative, no. CAS, cleared." Elena chambered the next round. Already shifting, an RPG team emerged, one man bracing the launcher, the other feeding a rocket. They were barely 70 meters from a pinned squad, the tube angling toward a smoking Humvee. She read the wind from the smoke, measured the arc. She fired. The gunner folded before he could squeeze the trigger. The rocket clattered uselessly into the dirt. From below, voices shouted over the net. "What the hell? Who's covering us?" Elena didn't answer. She crawled forward 3 meters, flattening herself against the slope until her outline dissolved into stone. The enemy sniper glints flared from the opposite ridge, sweeping like searching flashlights. She pressed flat, heartbeat calm, fingers brushing cool earth until it grounded her. Inch by inch, she slid into a new position and reset the rifle. Then she went to work. Each shot wasn't about killing. It was about unraveling threads. A command node collapsed mid-order, his fighters scattering. A machine gun on the western slope snapped, silent. A squad leader rallying men vanished into dust, momentum dying with him. Every trigger pull subtracted but also added. Each gap widened. Each silence stretched longer. Each Marine bought a few more breaths. The kill box began to unravel. On the net, confusion turned to realization. This isn't air. This is a rifle. Who's got Overwatch? Something's cutting the spurs. Elena's breathing slowed. Her world narrowed to distance, wind, time. She calculated holds in a blink and executed without hesitation. As she shifted, her sleeve caught on rock and rode up her arm. For the first time in months, the tattoo on her forearm lay exposed, the Marine sniper emblem. Clear, earned, undeniable. Her scars caught the light, too-thinned white lines along her knuckles. Old burns that never fully faded. They spoke of missions written into her skin, histories others had chosen to erase. Now they spoke louder than dismissal ever had. "Command, do you see this?" A lieutenant shouted from the ground. "We've got a ghost on Overwatch." Another voice cutting gravelly, unmistakable. The SEAL commander embedded with the battalion. "Call sign check," he barked. "Who's firing cover?" Elena stayed silent. Someone else answered. "Phantom 7, a voice whispered over the ops net, stunned. "It's Phantom 7. The net went dead quiet, the kind of silence where everyone listens. The commander's tone shifted. "Wait, Phantom 7. That's Elena Marquez." Pause. "No way," someone breathed. Dead weight. Phantom 7. Because Phantom 7 wasn't a nickname. It was a legend whispered in sniper school, tied to impossible shots and unconfirmed distances. A reputation forged before politics pushed her into obscurity. Back in the command room, the colonel stared at the feed, realization creeping over him like shadow. The support Marine no one wanted was the only thing holding the battalion together. Elena ignored it all. She kept firing. Her scope danced from ridge to ridge, carving seams where walls had stood. The kill box became a corridor. The valley shifted from grave to escape. She never raised her voice, never claimed credit. She simply answered doubt with precision. Rotor blades thundered overhead. Dust spiraled as helicopters dropped into the corridor she had carved with steel and patience. Marines sprinted for the LG, dragging wounded, covering with their last rounds. Every one of them knew the truth. The difference between massacre and miracle was a single rifle hidden on a ridge. Elena stayed prone, scanning. Each helicopter arrival brought new threats, muzzle flashes near the LZ. Fighters sprinting for final shots, movement where there shouldn't be any. She cut them down with the same calm discipline she showed on the range. Half-second squeezes. Controlled breathing. The radio crackled with something new. Hope. First chalk up wounded. Aboard, second bird inbound. Corridor. Holding. Phantom. 7 has us covered. Her call sign rippled. Through the net, like electricity, voices steadied. Panic gave way to execution. All units report accountability. One by one, squads checked in. At first, gaps. Silence where names should be. Then Bravo secured, Charlie accounted for. Delta moving to Bird. When the final report came, the commander exhaled. All 4080 accounted for. 0 left behind. The words landed heavier than gunfire. 0 left behind. An outcome no one in that room had believed possible. When the last helicopter lifted clear, Elena finally slid the safety on. She lowered the rifle and scanned the ridges one final time. Her hands were steady, her face unreadable. The climb down was slower, fatigue settling in only once the job was done. By the time she reached the compound, medevacs were landing, Marines spilling out, medics rushing forward. Dust coated everything, but the air held something else now. Silence. Not fear. Not dismissal. Respect. Marines lined the path. Helmets tucked under arms. No smirks, no laughter. Eyes followed her as she passed. Men who once shifted away now stood square, acknowledging her without words. At the end of the line stood the colonel. "You disobeyed direct orders," he said sharply. "Yes, sir." Paws stretched tight. Then his voice softened. "You saved a battalion." Before she could reply, the SEAL commander stepped forward, dust-streaked and exhausted. He raised a salute and held it. "Phantom 7, he said. "That valley owes you." Helmets came off. Heads bowed. Then applause, deep, resonant, reverent. Elena didn't smile. "I was just doing my duty, sir," the colonel nodded once. Later, alone in the armory, she stripped her rifle, cleaned it, logged every shot in her notebook. The numbers mattered. The method mattered. Recognition was noise. But outside, everything had changed. The Marines who mocked her never would again. The officers who ignored her hand never would again. They would tell the story the only way it ever truly lives. We should have died in that valley. But Phantom 7 was watching. True courage doesn't roar. It waits quiet, unseen until the moment demands it. And when it arrives, it doesn't ask for recognition. It does its duty. And in doing so, changes everything.